Good morning. Today is the day after Christmas, and we are out in the local vigilance area just having a look around. In the last couple of days, we've had a foot of snow. We've lost a foot of snow, and now we've had another dusting. So, been a little bit of a change in the weather, and we're going to have a look around and looking for sign. Not ideal, but we'll see what we can find today and enjoy a long weekend and get some more time in the field. Back in local vigilance, it is the day after Christmas. We are taking advantage of a long weekend and heading into an area of local vigilance along what ultimately meets up with the ridge line of a local. I don't know if I'll dedicate it to being a mountain, but the camera's acting tilty again. That annoys me. Anyway, a lot of different weather this week. We started out with about 8 inches of residual snow, and damn it, sorry, the camera's not acting nice. Today they got a little bit of a dusting last night. Yesterday, ironically, was very warm and rainy, and so all the 8 inches of snow melted, since it was batting about 60 degrees yesterday, and today it's about, I don't know, 28 right now. So just a little colder, but that's kind of a blessing in disguise, because a lot of the rain yesterday, what did I just hear? Function. The camera may be demonstrating it's not liking the cold very much, but what I was trying to say was the blessing in disguise is you're going to have a lot of runoff today because of the rain yesterday. But if some of it freezes, that could be a blessing in disguise where I don't have to walk through floodplain all the way up here. But I guess we'll find that out in time. The interesting flooding effects at home yesterday. We had a small lake next to my building because the ground being as hard as it was, the water just kind of piled up, and it was raining all day, so the apartment mailboxes were, for part of the afternoon, semi-underwater, which was interesting. And then it receded as quickly as it came along, so today, I don't know how ideal this is for tracking or anything, just given you got light snow going on, but we might find some indents or something, you never know. But we haven't been through this stretch of woods in a bit, so we're going to have a look in here for the sake of keeping eyes on it on a regular basis. And surprisingly, considering that it's about the last week in deer season, we don't see a lot of hunters here today, as in nobody home when I got here. I was prepared to have a more flexible game plan due to maybe having a lot of hunters here on occasion. You'll come in here and it'll be crowded with would-be Bambi slayers, but not the case today, surprisingly. Maybe it's too... No, hunters are a sturdy lot. I don't think the cold would keep them out. It's not that cold, actually. It's about 28, 29, riding around the 30 mark. But we'll probably have to dodge little lakes like this, though, because, like I said, it was raining all day yesterday, and the ground being all hard, the water can't get absorbed quickly, so you have that as a challenge for the day. Trying to think of anything Bigfoot related. Dr. Sykes died recently. That's a sad thing. He was the gentleman who proposed the theory that the Yeti was a bear of some kind. I don't know if I agree with that, but he was a known hard scientist who made Justin Schmeja cry for when he was doing the DNA sampling back in the days of the Melba Ketchum study, which surprisingly still makes its rounds and people buy into to some degree, but don't know what to tell you about that. It's one of those things that kind of was put to the test years ago and didn't pass muster, so I don't consider it to be a overly contentious or contender for the win in what Bigfoot may or may not be. There was enough wackiness that came out with that angel hair and angel DNA and stuff like that, at least on the rumor mill level. And it's just one of those things where, like, really, a lot of people had pinned their hopes and dreams on this, and then you start going off down that direction, or so the rumor mill said. And then there was a point where she tried to self-study or self-publish her own scientific paper when an actual scientific journal didn't give her the time of day. And I have to maneuver around this loveliness. How am I doing this? Because that's kind of deep and cold and wet. I think we're going to go this way. And she went and published her own, of course, validating all her findings, which, if you know anything about the scientific process, is not how that works. Hello. We have company. There's something in there. The residual sound could be the wind, but the first one was not. Something in there somewhere. Maybe a deer. A little cold to be a bear, but hopefully not the mountain lion I saw in April. Yes, Connecticut does have mountain lions. I have seen one this year, so there is one in here. Or it might have moved on by now. April's a long time ago. All right, so let's go have a look. Let's go bushwhack for a few and see if we can stir something out in the open. And here today I thought this was going to be a routine walk in the woods, and maybe not. I don't know how navigable this is going to be, because you got a lot of ice puddling in here and I have to maneuver through some of this, through this crap. I don't know how doable this is. Yeah, so much for stealth. That's not happening today, so. And my concern is potentially this could be, so because what's going on right now is having to approach from this area. The sun is what I'm walking into, so it is slightly obscuring my vision. So, like the ice puddles, so it's not gonna, anything coming through there is not gonna, there's a tree break, but there's not, although most of what's over there is coming through there. That being said, I'm not really seeing anything. You've got enough crunch, anything of size that was in here would be making noise. And what it seems to be doing, if it didn't move off already, it's hunkered down. That points me to thinking it's a deer. So we're going to head back to the trail such as it is. So I think we are dealing with a deer, because deer tend to be the things that hunker down. I don't think it's warm enough to be a bear or something of potential concern. Coyote or something, maybe, but they're not of that much concern. If they're single anyway. If you get a group of them, that could be different, but that was just natural sound. That was right there. But, okay. We're going to keep going. And if by interest, if something starts following us and making noise, then that would lead me to believe that it might be more squatchy. And up until that bird sounded off, I was going to say it is fairly quiet in here today. But let's repeat our steps here and then keep going. See if we trigger a following by anything. I doubt it, but no harm in trying. Run off. Ow. I just walked through a whole bunch of prickers that got through my... Okay. I see our culprit right there. It's... What are you? It's a bird, but what kind of bird are you? Literally a sparrow. Just a sparrow, we're good. You also could be up against the fact anything like breaking the ice right there, it's going to have an exaggerated sound, so even something small like a bird is going to make an exaggerated level of sound. So at this point, unless I hear following, I am going to take a segment break. It's funny because now I know it's a sparrow and I can still hear it. You would think there was something bigger going through there. But it is just a sparrow. It's funny. It's not liking the cold. It would seem it's cut out 3 times now. Again, this area has... I'm going to take a segment break. Occasionally had moose in the area. More signs of things digging. Kind of going around through here. Not really sure what, but we're following its trail, whatever it is. It'd be nice if the camera wouldn't tilt. There you go, I think. Anyway, we'll do the best we can today. The cold and the wind it's not so bad up here. It was colder coming up, it seemed. But the camera is acting up. So, kind of looking on the ground for indents. But not really finding anything so far. And the amount of dusting of the snow is not really enough to really allow for leaving definable tracks, but we'll make our way through here and see what we find. This is the basis of the neighborhood. It's kind of been it was logged years ago, but so we're not in the densest, but it kind of gets thicker as we go further down the way here. But as you can see, this area has been logged, so the line of sight's further out and the like, and then you get into here, they never, I guess this is where they stopped, established the boundary for some reason. But kind of dictates the nature of the woodland that you're in. My original plan had been to go on the lower side, not so much on the trail, but towards the bogs, which is more northeast. Up here we're kind of heading southwest at the moment. Basically the opposite direction, but again, I mentioned the runoff. And the runoff was crossing the trail in certain areas where it's basically 20 degrees, and should it get deep enough, it's not going to be passable. So I just decided that it wasn't really worth the trouble. And then remembered I hadn't been up this way in a bit, so we're doing this stretch of woods instead, looking for signs of life and the like. Wasn't that cold before, but now it's getting chilly again. So again, things, Bigfoot scuttlebutt kind of stuff. It's been, in my own opinion, it's been quieter this year, mainly because of just the pandemic. So people may have been, I know of a few people that have just been, like, in their own words, social distancing, and as a result, they haven't been out as much. Kept it more conservative this year. Recently I've had to do that because Vermont has kind of like fully locked down. You have to quarantine for 10 days just to go there from anywhere. So I've respected their travel advisory. See, now it's getting thicker again. Especially down in here, as you go down the mountain, it gets pretty thick. So I've been observing that. Just, I mean, I suspect I probably could, sneak over the border and do some hiking and sneak back out again, but it's just not, it's not respectful of their wishes right now. And until we get more of a handle and it gets warmer again, it's going to be a rough patch, especially people traveling over the holidays. So I don't want to throw myself in the mix, even though in another 2 weeks I will have gotten my second shot and I'll be vaccinated. They're still not sure if, even though your immunity is going to be a lot higher at that point, if you're not, they don't honestly know if you're able to still pass it on to those that haven't gotten vaccinated. I know there are those that are resistant to doing it, but that's, at this juncture, an individual choice. That being said, it is for most people for the flu shot too, but in my instance, this is how thick it gets down in there. Kind of, you notice how it gets a lot thicker. In my case, I work for a hospital, and flu shots were a condition of employment. So there are people out there that are mandated to get them mainly in healthcare, which makes sense, but, and I'll be the first one to say I'm not an anti-vaxxer or anybody with that kind of a freaking mindset, because that's just counterproductive. It just weakens the collective gene pool to have that kind of mindset. I'm sorry, that's how I feel about it. But without delving into politics, because that's not the purpose of my channel. Let's stick to the matter at hand. Yeah, that gets really thick. So, I suspect I'm going to take another segment break if nothing's going on, only because I want to save the camera battery. I didn't fully charge it today with things going on over the holidays. So we're going to take a break here, and then we'll be back in a few if something else happens. We'll be back. Generally back, and what you're hearing in the background, if the camera's picking that up, it's not quite cold enough for wood pops, but it's kind of like the precursor to them, which is a matter of the insides of trees basically expanding and contracting with the changing of the weather. You hear like louder wood pops usually when you get down into like single digits, and when people would be looking at me like I'm nuts for being out here when it's that cold. I mean, it's chilly today in the wind, but like 12 degrees in wind. that really is like an endurance test of how long can you stay out here, let alone try to record on a camera. That probably is not going to like that level of cold, because I've already had some issues today, and it's, if I had to guess right now, probably lower 30s. Like, not terribly freezing, but chilly. But wind and like 2 degrees, that's more likely I'm going to stay home, because if anything goes wrong, your car doesn't start, that kind of thing. Trying to say that's where a bad day becomes you go out and something like that happens logistically to go wrong. Like the best way to avoid such things, depending on how far out you are, you enter into the territory of a survival situation, which the best way to avoid is not to be there in the first place. And there is a level of temperature at which pretty much anything out there, not just potentially Bigfoot, but like other wildlife, if it's that cold, they're basically, all they're doing is hunkering down, trying not to freeze to death. So you being out there is not really, there's a time of year when it's cold enough that you have to think about things like that more, because logistics will bite you in the derriere a lot quicker should something go wrong. That's why planning is also essential. Without going into names or past associates, there are those who have gone into a situation overly casually, and more often than not, in my opinion, been lucky that nothing went wrong. That's just my opinion, but I think they've just been lucky that nothing's gone wrong too bad. We were lucky at one point in an old situation. We just happened to have a medic as a new member in my old group, and we had a person who was choking on jerky, and he just happened to know how to do the Heimlich. Because in a situation like that, if somebody didn't know what to do and nobody reacted, or if the person was alone in camp and was trying to get that thing out, little things like that become deadly, potentially. But I've also seen people make poor judgments, and I'm not going to mention names, but people that know me might know what I'm referring to. We had a situation, this happened in 2013, where one of our members was recovering from a medical condition, and in my opinion probably shouldn't have been there, but they chose to show up. But the short version is, I basically had tried to keep them close to the trailhead so that if something had happened, it would have been a minimal trip to get him out and get him to medical attention should he needed to. But due to a family obligation, I had to leave that trip early. And the minute I was gone, one of these people that I'm referring to being overly casual about things, and in this case downright selfish, coerced this person into moving their stuff to their camp, and basically in the course of doing this, he almost passed out because he wasn't up to doing things that exertive. But the other person, had never occurred to them that this could be a dangerous thing to have. They weren't thinking about that. They were thinking about themselves. And I will say, without, again, I'll leave names out of it, but I will not camp with people of this nature, because they are a danger to themselves and they're a danger to the people they're with. At the very least, they're a chronic sphincter pain, because they are going to pout when they don't get their way. And yet if they get their way, they put people at risk. If you're watching my video, you know who you are, you know what I'm talking about, and you know that I'm right. And if it offends you, oh well. That wouldn't be our only issue, but that's something that is a legitimate issue. So we're making our way back now, and I'm not really seeing any signs of life. So at this point, rather than ramble, I'm going to, this might be the final segment break unless something happens on the way back, but for the sake of not having the camera randomly die on me at a weird interval, we're going to call this segment here. So unless something happens and I come back at this point tentatively, we will catch you the next time.